truly the healing is in the testimony. The healing is in sharing the story and speaking the truth. It's in not hiding and feeling shame about it. The thing I have noticed when I decided to start speaking my truth is a lot of people started to tell me, hey, maybe don't share all this personal information about yourself. It's too much. And I picked up on, oh, this is the spirit of pride. The spirit of pride is telling me to hide the things that used to make me weak, that used to make me feel worthless. And it's making me worried about what others people's perspective of me is. Hello, beautiful people. It's your girl Neyssa with XPansive Taste. Here we expand our realities to ultimate greatness and learn to receive the best out of life. So this video is very heavy and hard to talk about because it is revolving around what is occurring with the new trophy wife and what's happening with her and her family. And yeah, I know a lot of people have been reporting on the story, and everyone has their own perspective on things. And I wanted to I wanted to talk about it from my own perspective, especially as someone who has experienced sexual assault. And so I did notice that some people were very confused about how someone could experience something like sexual assault, like from their husband 4 times early in the marriage, and not notice that as a red flag to possibly the husband's sexual perversion, his evilness, and how you can have that experience and still speak so highly of him on your channel and talk about how you have this high value man and whatnot. And it is confusing, but I wanted to provide some clarity for those people who yeah, I just wanted to provide some clarity from my perspective. I do believe that at some point we all learned what Stockholm Syndrome is. Not necessarily that this is exactly that, definitely not, but the brain works kind of in the same way where it wants to normalize the trauma, and it gives you a way to um, survive. It's a survival mechanism. And so yeah, what happens with Stockholm syndrome? You get kidnapped, and then you end up sympathizing with your kidnapper and even loving them and seeing their more human, good side. And that allows you to move on through your day, through your life, and not completely lose hope. And it just keeps you in a healthier state of mind to ignore the bad. And yeah, that's how I can overall summarize it. But personally, you know, I can get in more into depth. Like when I was raped at 17, it was by someone who was a fuck buddy. And what happened in that situation is that it started out consensually, and then at some point I got really uncomfortable. Yeah, I got uncomfortable and I expressed that I wanted it to stop, and he didn't listen to me. And so at that moment, that was when he raped me. And in that moment, it was like mind shattering. Like my reality was shattered. And in that moment, even though I knew what had happened, I didn't want to believe that that is what happened, especially because in that moment, like I felt weak and worthless, and I needed to deny anything that would like affirm that belief that I'm weak and worthless. And so I denied practically instantly. I denied the fact that I was raped because that would mean admitting and facing what had happened. It would mean admitting that maybe I am weak or worthless, or I am a victim. The idea of being a victim was enough to just turn me off from wanting to claim that. Because to me, admitting that I was a victim would mean that I'm accepting that I was hurt and that I needed help, and I didn't want that to be my reality. And so I had to just like ignore it and pretend that it didn't happen. So I can see why that would be the experience of Isis. And, after being raped by her husband, probably since the first time, she didn't want to believe that that's what happened, because that would mean that she would have to get rid of the other belief of him being her Prince Charming. And it's easier to survive and pretend that things are okay, or that it was just a fluke, um, if you choose to believe that it didn't happen, or that it just won't happen ever again. And that was my thought process, where I thought, oh, it was just a fluke. It happened so fast, maybe he didn't mean it. And it also wasn't that bad. That was the thing that I kept telling myself. It wasn't that bad. It's not like he beat you. It's not like he kidnapped you. It's not like he locked you in a room for weeks. It wasn't that bad. And so I had to normalize what had happened, because it wasn't that bad. And it also makes things so much more confusing when that person who hurt you is also the same person who tells you that they love you, who marries you, the person who shelters you and who's buying you things and supporting you and financially providing. When this person is doing so many nice things for you, it's it becomes very confusing. And so you start measuring things on a scale, like, okay, he did 20 good things and then one bad thing. Was it really that bad? It's like, maybe it's no big deal. Or also, maybe I deserved it. Maybe I should have been a better wife. Maybe I should have put out. Maybe I should have just been submissive and not argued, and it would have just gone so simple and smooth if I just was more obedient or something like that, especially as a Christian woman, and you're told that your duty as a wife is to please your husband and whatever. Like, that could be something that is, you know, it's very contradicting or whatever. It makes you not fully accept that what he did was wrong. In my experience, after I was assaulted, in that moment, I felt like a worthless whore. And for actual many years, I just assumed he did that to me because that's what I am. He made me feel like a worthless whore because that's what I am. And I carry that with me. And in a way, like, I would feel low. I couldn't understand why I would feel so low. And then I would think that the solution is to find someone else to like validate me in some way, to make me feel a little bit better than just a worthless whore. And then, yeah, it was like this weird sick cycle where I was looking for validation and, you know, accepting anything that wasn't that any accepting anything that was like above rape, which is ridiculous. Like, oh, if it wasn't as bad as that, then of course I'm better, I'm worthy of something. But it wouldn't make me feel better. The situation, the encounter, it'd be over, he'd forget my name or something, I wouldn't get a text back, and then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm a worthless whore all over again, because obviously I wasn't good enough to keep around. And I can see how, as a wife, when your husband does this terrible thing to you, in a way, like, what he did is wrong, but in another way, you also feel like, maybe I just did something wrong, maybe there's something I can do better to make it not happen again. And yeah, it becomes like this kind of performance trick where you're testing out to see, how can I get better treatment, and you just keep giving more. And in a way, it's just not enough, because that's just who he is. He's just someone who is a taker, an abuser. And you think it's you, but it's not you, it's his sickness. So unfortunately, when it comes to sexual assault, a lot of victims end up blaming themselves and thinking that they're the problem, rather than being able to point the finger at that other person, because that person transferred their shame and darkness into you. And it wasn't for you to carry, it wasn't for you to hold on to. It's That's their shame, that's their darkness, that's their evil. And unfortunately, sometimes we internalize that darkness and think that it's us when really it's not. It's like this crazy, weird energy transfer that happens. Another thing Isis had mentioned is that she was actually a product of rape, and she had been molested by a neighbor when she was younger. And hearing those things lets you know that this really is like an energetics thing. It's like a generational trauma, a generational curse. And if you don't believe in the spiritual aspect of things, then whatever. I stand by what I'm saying. But unfortunately, maybe because she didn't completely work through her trauma with those things, it's why it continued. Yeah, it the healing, it was not complete, and that's why the cycle repeated. And we have to learn how to break these cycles. And by breaking these cycles, I really do have to let you know it's not just like a what you do in your physical world. It really is inner work. It really is spiritual because Isis mentioned that because that was her experience, she watched her kids like a hawk. She didn't let her kids sit on people's lap. She made sure that she was doing her best to protect her children, yet they still ended up getting hurt. Into that, I would say, yes, precautions matter. Precautions are important, and we should always be applying them. But if you're not doing the energetic spiritual work, like, there's only so much you can do. There's the enemy is going to find a way to get to you if you're not breaking that curse, breaking that, just all that darkness. I don't know exactly the right words, but you have to break the cycle and really heal and do your inner work. And I wanted to make a side note that it doesn't even really matter if that wasn't like, that's not in your family, that's not like a generational curse that's occurring in your family, because you never know the kind of tricks the enemy will try to throw at you. Like, for example, my mom, as far as I know, as far as she's told me, she had never been touched by anyone. She married my father as a virgin, and she had just been married for 30 plus years to my father. And even with all that, with her not having any kind of sexual trauma, as far as I know, even with that not being her experience, her daughter still ended up getting molested, still ended up getting groomed, still ended up getting raped, still ended up getting in toxic relationships. That happened to her daughter, to me. And so it's like there's no real way to predict how things will go. Mind you, I was very protected as a child. I was sheltered. I grew up sheltered, okay? I was not allowed to go to sleepovers. I grew up going to church every single Sunday. I wasn't allowed to visit my friends' houses from school, even my friends' houses from church. I wasn't allowed to go to because they had brothers. Yeah, I got the sex talk. I got all those talks. I got the talk about, even like rape and molestation. Like, I was like still in elementary school. My mom told me about all that stuff, and all that still ended up happening to me. And really, because of that protection and that love throughout my childhood, I did experience a better time healing and appreciating my mom and, my parents for all they've done for me. But yeah, there really is no predicting. You're really underestimating the spiritual world if you think you can just make everything work the way you want it to work by your own will, because it's not just your own will. You're fighting against so many different princes and principalities, as it said in the Bible. Like, it's not just what you see, it's so much more that you can't see. And that's why prayer and healing and deliverance, that's why those things are so important. That's why community is so important. And that's also why sharing the truth is so important. I'm actually pretty bothered by those of you thinking that her sharing her story was the wrong thing to do. Like, oversharing on internet is the wrong thing to do. You need to keep some things private, keep some things close to your family and whatnot. And that is the very reason why we can't grow, is because we keep holding on to the dark stuff. We're keeping it close to us as if it's supposed to be shameful, but it's not our shame to carry and to hide and to protect. It's for us to let go, and you can't let go until you actually share and speak up what's happened. When I was raped, I didn't tell anyone, and I didn't even admit it to myself. I didn't even want it to believe it to myself. I held on to that secret for 4 years. Truly, the healing is in the testimony. The healing is in sharing the story and speaking the truth. It's in not hiding and feeling shame about it. The thing I have noticed when I decided to start speaking my truth is a lot of people started to tell me, hey, maybe don't share all this personal information about yourself. It's too much. And I picked up on, oh, this is the spirit of pride. The spirit of pride is telling me to hide the things that used to make me weak, that used to make me feel worthless. And it's making me worried about what others people's perspective of me is. The pride is telling me, oh no, now you're going to be a target. Now people are going to think you're broken. Now people are going to realize that you're not perfect. That's what the pride is doing. But really, who am I to be so worried about how other people might perceive me? Who am I to keep my experience to myself when I know that me sharing this is going to be the reason why someone else starts to admit the truth to themselves? It's going to be the reason why someone else starts to begin their healing journey. Who am I to keep it to myself when there's the possibility that someone else hearing this gives them an idea of how they can protect others, how they can protect themselves, how they can protect their daughters? To really start to experience healing, I had to humble myself. I had to speak the truth. I had to share what my experience was and to let go of, yeah, all that shame. And I am so glad that Isis decided to share her story on her platform. First of all, in a way, a lot of people have been deceived on the internet because everyone's portraying this, perfect life. And it would be very hypocritical of her to continue to portray a perfect life when she knows that it's all falling apart. I feel like there's, like, after that, like, where's the growth? Where's the healing if you're just going to continue sharing a lie? And so I'm very, yeah, I really respect her for sharing something that, yeah, she didn't have to do that, but she chose to humble herself so that we could all be having this very important conversation about healing, about inner work, about protecting ourselves, about supporting each other, about protecting our children, about marriage, about all these different things, about sexual assault. We're having this conversation because she opened up her mouth, and that is something that we all have to, like, applaud. And I don't appreciate those of you who are twisting it to make it seem like her sharing the story is going to make her children a target. And the thing is, okay, guys, predators, they know. Predators, I don't know how they do it, but predators know who to target, whether anyone tells them that they had been hurt before. Whether anyone tells them or not, they just know. They know who to target. It doesn't matter. The predators are going to know regardless, okay? The story is not there to make her children a target. That risk, I don't, that's, forget it, okay? I'm not thinking about that risk. The real change that's going to happen, the real change that I see is that people are going to do an even better job at protecting the children. This sharing the story, it's not making the kids a target, okay? It's making sure that we are keeping an eye on these children and doing our best to protect them. No matter where they are, no matter who they're with, we are doing our best. Sharing this story is getting people to really think about all the different risks and to really take it all seriously, like what's happening in this world, how just all the corruptness that's happening. The world has been boldly corrupt about their view of family and children, and it's sexualizing children, and it's just not putting them at the forefront of, what we really need to protect. We're going to be talking more about safety. We're going to be talking more about finding actual good partners and husbands. We're going to be talking about the importance of a strong community. We're going to be talking about we're going to be talking to our children about all the different risks. I know there's this author, she has these books about body safety, about safe touches and unsafe touches, and she has like 4 books, pretty much all revolving around sexual abuse. And I think it's mostly based on sexual abuse, but she has books that are written for children to understand, like, hey, if someone does this to you, it's wrong. It's not okay. Please tell me. Another note I have is that we really shouldn't be limiting ourselves to who we should share our stories with. Um, of course, if in your spirit you don't feel like the time is right and it's not the right person to share it with, then that may be important. That may be something to think about. But I don't think we should be making generalized statements about, oh, we shouldn't just put these things on the internet, or we should only speak to these things to professionals. We should only speak to these things to therapists, to doctors, to lawyers. I don't understand this fixation on just limiting, certain knowledge to people with different labels and titles, because that doesn't guarantee that just because you told the right person that you're going to get the right result. I don't believe that there is a right person to tell for every situation. Like, children can even tell their own mother. They can say, "Hey, something happened to me. This person did that." And then all of a sudden the mom is trying to protect the abuser, and she's all like, "Oh no, no, you must be lying. You must have misinterpreted the situation." Imagine if that kid only stopped at telling the mom. Like, that's usually what happens. They tell the mom doesn't believe him or her, and then she's just like, the kid just shuts up. They just shut up about it for years because they're just like, well, the first person I told didn't believe me. Like, why are we placing limits on how many people we can tell, who we can tell, when we can tell it? Like, if it needs to be told now, if it needs to be told on the internet, then so be it. And of course, we already know there are cases where you can report something to the police, and then they're like, "Oh, you don't have evidence. The time, too much time has passed. There's no way to do a rape kit and for it to be accurate, so we can't help you." Or they're just not able to help you in the way that you need them to. And imagine if you just stop there. If you just stop there, where do you get your justice? Where do you get your healing? You could go to your own doctor and they could have their own sick little biases, and then they start putting doubts in your head, and they're like, "Well, are you sure it was rape? Are you sure? Because that's your husband, and it's not rape if it's your husband." Like, why are we placing so much power on certain people with titles and just limiting ourselves in that way? The truth shouldn't just reach a few people who might be able to help you professionally. The truth needs to be shared with the community. Everybody needs to know. How can everybody help you if only 2 people know the truth? The 2 people you tell the truth might not want to help you. They might not have the capacity to help you. So tell 10, tell 20, tell 30, tell 100, tell 1,000, tell 1,000,000. Tell as many people as you need to until you get your help, until you get your healing, until you're even able to start helping others. So I really do hope that Isis sharing her truth, she is able to receive all that God has for her and for her family and for her kids' healing. Yeah, and I really do pray that she has all the resources and support that she needs in order to take care of herself and her kids, her family, and so that they can heal and thrive, and that that sick man can receive everything that he's meant to receive. I do pray that all the energy and light that we are putting onto the story of Isis and her children, I do pray that that energy uplifts them from the dark nightmare that they are in, and that they move past this. Yeah, I pray for their healing and I pray for their justice. And yeah, the energy transfer is happening. That's what I'm hearing. The energy transfer is happening. The evil people of the world, they will no longer be protected by our secrets. We are being open, we are being bold, we are letting go of the shame, and it's not our shame to carry. It's not our shame to carry, it's theirs. The energy transfer is occurring. We are receiving light, letting go of the darkness, receiving light. um, I think that's all I have to share with you, beautiful people. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching and feeling this so passionately with me. That is all, beautiful people. Thank you so much for watching. I send you my love. Mwah. Bisous.